For the next portion of the event, I'm really excited to welcome Lish Gates from Algolia. Lish and I were just DMing that the last time we raised a round, Lish and I were enjoying some Mai Tais together afterwards. So she has really been here for the entire ride. Lish, you are an experienced sales enablement and operations leader. You manage a global enablement team and strategy with the help of WorkRamp. I think everyone's really excited to learn from you today. Would you mind quickly introducing yourself to the rest of the crowd here?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Lish, and again, I have the pleasure of leading the revenue enablement team here at Algolia. And for those of you that don't know, Algolia is a search as a service platform that delivers fast and relevant digital experiences across the web, mobile, and voice devices. And you've all used our search because we are partners with WorkRamp as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Lish. And just so everybody knows, the topic of our fireside chat today will be expanding the influence of enablement across the business. And so today we're actually going to have Lish walk us through her team's rapid and exciting expansion at Algolia, from first enabling the sales and go-to-market org to training external partners. And now she's looking into HR training and enablement as the next step. So Lish, your role started in sales enablement, as I said. I wanted to first kind of talk about one of the most foundational and important programs that your team has built and continue to iterate on over time, which is sales onboarding. We understand you guys are actively working on an onboarding program V2. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so onboarding is an iterative process, as I'm sure you're all aware. It's kind of like a product. And we've always had a common method to approach it. So step one, build something. Step two, baseline it and gather feedback. Step three is making sure that it's predictable. And step four is optimizing to reduce the ramp. So we really got into step one and step two, but before we could really drive that predictability, we really needed to optimize sooner based upon the overall experience. So V2 is a response to that shift to the remote virtual life that we now live in. So we needed to create a remote first onboarding experience, one that complements our tech stack and the current bandwidth of our team, because we are a lean and mean team. And also because we wanted to make sure that we were creating an overall experience of feeling included and really get our culture across to our new hires. So the strategy has been to create something more scalable, with goals to improve onboarding completion, improve onboarding engagement from managers, and hopefully this translates to reducing the ramp based on the data that we have today.
I love that you brought up culture. I think it's kind of a no-brainer that onboarding the skills somebody needs is more difficult during a remote world, but it's also harder to make someone feel like they're a part of a team and a part of the sales org. So I love that you're thinking about that. Another question for you is what are you changing this time around? So in other words, what went really well in V1 and what maybe needed improvement?
Yeah, great question. So V1 was a state of build, build, build. So when I first joined Algolia, it was, hey, you're going to be doing sales enablement and let's build AE onboarding. And rapidly it became, no, you're going to be building for 12 revenue roles. So we were just building a ton of content. And now looking back at what we've built, we've realized that there's so many areas and places that we need to optimize and improve. So V2 is about building something more proactive versus reactive. We've got tons of feedback. We have tons of data. And we have tons of collaboration that's happening across teams and departments. And we've taken not only an internal approach to redesigning V2, but also an external approach as well. So we've reached out to tons of our friends and our networks at other companies running onboarding programs and asked them what their programs look like in a virtual world today. And at some point, it'll be a magical blog post, I'm sure. And then the other piece that's really influenced our V2 has been this book that our entire team read called How People Learn by Nick Shackleton-Jones. Shameless plug, fantastic book. It talks about push and pull learning. And we realized after reading this book that push learning is basically pushing our learners to care and giving them a reason to want to learn and retain that knowledge. And then there's other things where people want to learn it in a moment. And so that's where it's a pull type of resource. And so a simple example of like push versus pull is a pull would be like a recipe. Unless you're making that same recipe and that same meal over and over again, you're generally not going to commit it to memory, versus if you're wanting to make that special dinner, you're going to want to pull that recipe as a resource and it'll just be step-by-step checklist and really easy to use. So thinking through onboarding through that lens, we decided that there was a lot of things that we had designed that were guides, didn't need to be guides, they just needed to be resources. And then also we wanted to make sure that we were building an experience that was pushing people to care about what we were trying to get them to retain.
I love that. Great. That's a really good way to explain the concept of what's the difference between a guide versus a resource. Like a guide is something we want to test on. We want them to really retain it, right? Whereas a resource could be more something that they check when they need it, a pull learning. Wow, I'm learning a lot. I will have to read this book myself. A question for you, Lish. What are you looking forward to kind of adding in V2 that maybe wasn't there before at all?
Yeah, so we've had a bunch of like onboarding live sessions that we've had, but we wanted to try to redesign a virtual onboarding bootcamp experience as well. So we're going to be kicking off quarterly virtual boot camps. So we're really pumped about it. We have so much fun with the virtual stuff. We even have a virtual graduation party as well, which is really fun, where there's like the little Zoom like graduation hats and all sorts. It's really fun. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then also we're looking forward to leveraging more video content that our education team has been working on to supply to customers. They are phenomenal at building that content. And we've always shied away in V1 around building a lot of video content, just due to the fact that it would be really hard for us to update when we're building for so many roles and to move really fast. So this time we're going to embrace more of that content that they've been working on into V2.
Cool. I love that. And what about, so when it comes to measuring success, are there any new or different metrics you'll be focusing on for V2 more so than V1?
Right. So we go ham on metrics at Algolia. So if we're not measuring things, we can't improve things and show the impact. So obviously, depending on the role, the metrics change. And so step one, whenever you're going to attack an onboarding program, no matter the role, is to kind of work backwards. What do you want someone to be able to do, and how are we going to showcase that they can do it in our CRM or in the onboarding curriculum and work ramp? And so just to give you an example of a few of the things that we're doing for AEs, we track time to first deal, so expansion and net new biz, pipeline creation and pipeline coverage, course completion, overall NPS scores of our onboarding. And then once they've finished their onboarding track, we push them into an AE performance dashboard that's pretty rigorous, so that we can learn who our top performers are and middle performers and low performers. And that allows us also to find subject matter experts and help the people that may be struggling as well. So I don't know if there's any like new metrics per se, because having an operations background, we've always kind of dug really deep there as well.
I love that. I'm obsessed with data as well. I come from mixed channels, so I completely, as did a lot of your coworkers at Algolia, so I completely get the data-driven approach. I love all of that. Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about how your role has grown. So a couple of really exciting things that I've gotten to see over the last couple of years is, your team's scope has expanded into other departments. And additionally, even more departments at Algolia, even beyond just your team, have picked up using WorkRamp, which is really exciting. So, for example, I know recently you've been using WorkRamp and working with your team to train external partners. And my understanding is the education team at Algolia uses WorkRamp to train Algolia's customers. And so I just wanted to talk about some of these changes as Algolia is kind of expanding overall enablement efforts, and talk about what it's like for your team to take on more pieces of that. So maybe you could kind of start by walking us through, how was your team actually able to expand their scope from owning just go-to-market org trainings to now owning the partner trainings as well?
Yeah, so we have another team at Algolia called the education team, and they're based in Paris, and they consist of a curriculum designer, videographers, technical writers, and educators, and they're a phenomenal team to partner with. And one of the things that makes that team also really special, not only that they create this beautiful content for our customers, but also some of them are software engineers. And so they've really become our partners for helping to build more technical enablement, as well as helping with product training, because we are quite a technical product. And so when we first got WorkRamp, what we wanted to do was make sure that we could build something scalable, because my team is split across 3 different time zones. And so we started by actually bringing in the education team and saying, hey, can you help us build curriculum design templates so that we can move faster and make sure that there's synergy across everything that we're building, because we were working really fast and scrappy. And so straight away, becoming customers, even though they weren't working full-time in WorkRamp, we had that team working with us in that tool in WorkRamp. So that was step one. And then they also helped us develop a lot of our product onboarding coursework for our GTM teams. So they got really hands-on. And so when the opportunity arose for, they were in another LMS that was powering our external academies. And they were trying to find a new tool to use that would sync with Salesforce so that we could get a really great customer 360 view. It just made sense for them to just hop on in with us because we were already connected to Salesforce, and they already knew how to use our product. And the great thing about having us all in one tool is now we can like borrow from each other really easily.
Yeah.
So before they were, they had their Swarm files and a completely different system. And now it's like, hey, Lish, can I leverage the AI framework that you built in this guide? And I'm like, 100%. And it just makes it really, really fast. So we've got some beautiful synergy. In terms of the partnership enablement and building that external partner academy, it kind of had, we had this fantastic feedback and following and adoption from our go-to-market onboarding. And when we were onboarding our referral partners and other forms of partners, it just made sense to put them through similar training that we had already built and gotten good feedback on. And so again, it was, let's not recreate the wheel, let's leverage what we have and then make it external facing.
Awesome. So excited we could help power that with you. I'm curious, what surprised you, if anything, about working with these other teams, sharing content, and also managing enablement across, you yourself now across internal and external use cases? Was anything surprising about it?
I don't know if it's surprising, but I can share my favorite thing. So having the visibility of how each role that touches a customer impacts their overall experience is really cool. And being able to own the narrative of that is also really nice as well. So it's easy for us to make changes externally and internally and be impactful. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, one more question just on the expansion to internal and external use cases together. How did that change your success metrics, if at all, as your team kind of expanded their scope there?
So overall, at a macro level, our metrics are quite simple. It's always been to make sure that revenue goes up and cost of sale goes down. And so obviously, as we get into the weeds of the different areas that our team supports, we can get quite granular. So onboarding will always and forever be improving ramp metrics. And the interesting part for our team is the different metrics that we get to improve on depending on the strategic projects that we get to do. So for partners, it's, can we get great NPS scores? And then internally on like the projects that we also get to be a part of outside of just onboarding, I can give an example that last quarter, we had an OKR to align to business objectives where we were trying to improve the win rate from the beginning of period pipeline. And so we get to work with those teams to solve a problem and then watch it come into fruition later in the quarter. So this quarter, we're focusing on, improving zombie pipeline. So I enjoy getting into those metrics and then improving those. That's where I get the most fun out of my role.
Love that. Resuscitate the ops. That's a great goal.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to, for this final section, I actually wanted to look ahead a little bit. I know we're kind of actively working now on expanding your enablement influence into HR trainings as well. I'm curious, what are some trends that you're seeing both at Algolia, but also kind of in the enablement industry at large as you're thinking about going company-wide here?
Yeah, I think it's no surprise the current economic environment has just impacted everything that we're doing in terms of onboarding. Everyone seems to be majority a remote. And so the trend is how can we instill the culture, the confidence and new hires and that they've made the right choice of joining the company and that they have what they need. And we had a really good track record with onboarding since leveraging WorkRamp. And we were getting to a place where we were getting asks from different business units that were outside of revenue to go through our onboarding program. So I've had asks from engineering, marketing, even new execs. And to be honest, I was starting to juggle seats because we had only budgeted for the revenue team. So it made it a really easy conversation for me to go to my chief people officer and say, hey, does this make sense for just all our Algolians to go through this one-stop shop? And the other thing that I'll say is it'll allow us to have a more streamlined approach to onboarding. So instead of them having to go through all of these tasks and steps for HR through Bamboo HR, we can now bring that into WorkRamp and have like a more streamlined approach to the onboarding process.
Awesome. I'm super excited about that personally. So it'll be great to see your scope grow. I'm curious, given COVID and everything else that's gone on in this crazy, weird 2020, why do you think this consolidation strategy is relevant now for Algolia?
Honestly, it's we have talented people making great content, and we're a small team. And if we're going to have others investing time in making great content, we want to be able to share it and use it as much as possible. So it's really about leveraging each other's talents. And also, when everyone's in one tool, creating that really great synergy, it's actually a better overall experience for anyone joining the company. If I'm a new hire and I have to jump into 4 different tools to find what I need to do my job, it gets a lot harder. And so it's really about allowing people to be more autonomous with their learning, and everyone knows that this is where you go for your learning and development during your time here at Algolia.
Yeah, I bet that makes remote onboarding easier than if you just have to figure it out in like 8 different systems from the comfort of your own home. Yep. And then last question, you probably know where I'm going with this since I was asking you a lot about metrics for the last 2 kind of categories, but how will you think about measuring success at the company-wide level?
I think it goes back to overall basic usage, adoption, and feedback. I've always kind of come into Algolia with the same mentality. Can people find what they need really easily? And can we make their life easier? Can we make them more productive? Can they walk away better than they were before? I always want someone to have become an Algolian and literally turn around and say, I'm better at what I do because I've worked at Algolia. So that's generally my mission and my team's mission, is to make that happen.
Awesome. So I'm feeling inspired. I definitely learned something from Lish today. I hope the rest of you guys did as well. I think honestly, one of my favorite takeaways, and you kind of brought it up when you were talking about sales onboarding, but kind of tapping your network and asking for advice outside of just Algolia, but tapping other enablement professionals, that's what part of why we think this channel is so important. It's not just so that we can learn from you guys and make our product better, but also so that you all can connect with each other. So I'm really happy to hear that you kind of employ those methods. And yeah, I'm excited to follow your work as you continue to kind of build out the influence of enablement at Algolia. I know I speak for everyone at WorkRamp when I say we're really proud to be partnered with you. But yeah, thanks for your time and for sharing.
Having me.